Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to Conversations from Stritch. I'm joined this afternoon, as usual, by Dr. Christopher Sint, our provost. I want to wish all of you, I just hope that you had a wonderful Easter and that you're enjoying Easter week. We weren't on last week because of Easter, but we're excited to be back again this week. I also wanted to just remind people that yesterday, hopefully many of you saw this, but yesterday was the feast day of John Baptist de La Salle, the patron saint of teachers, and the person who really grounds us in terms of our educational mission here. We're so grateful for the brothers and want to, hope that they had a wonderful feast day yesterday. A couple quick things. For those of you that are employees, especially of the university, received a note from me yesterday reminding you about Community Day next Tuesday the 13th, in which we will be meeting and talking about the strategic future of the university. So it's a strategic planning event, 3 hours in the afternoon. We're hoping to get about 400 people to attend that event. So please, if you just didn't see that email, relook at it. We really hope that you can join us next week. One more quick thing, and then I'm going to turn it back to Chris. Just a reminder for all of you in the Lewis community that are out there, we do have a visit day. Many schools were not able, and Lewis was not able to have in-person visit days in the fall. We had our first one a couple weeks ago, but we have another one on April 24th. So if you have anybody in your family, a cousin, a nephew, a sister or brother who's thinking about Lewis for next fall or the following fall after that, they might be interested in joining us on April 24th. You can go to our admissions part of our website and sign up for that. So Chris, what's going on with COVID?
Well, hello everyone, great to be with you. I have a few announcements about COVID-19 and then we'll move on to some other announcements. First thing to mention, also for our Lewis employees who are watching, we will be hosting a COVID-19 vaccination clinic on campus tomorrow, April 9th, from 9 to 11:30 in the St. Charles Borromeo flight deck. It's the Johnson & Johnson single dose vaccine, and in order to make an appointment, you need to register through the web link that was sent last night by Chella Dufour, and again, it will be sent in my Thursday email today at about 1 o'clock. So if you're looking for a place to get vaccinated, you can do that on our campus tomorrow morning. More broadly, beginning Monday, next week, April 12th, the state of Illinois will open COVID-19 vaccine eligibility to everyone over 16. So I will also list in my email today useful ways to find vaccine sites in the area. And we also plan to continue to host vaccine clinics on campus focused on students and other employees if they haven't been able to get access to the vaccine after the end of this week. So more information about that will be available as it becomes known to us in our connection with the county and other providers of vaccines. So a couple of reminders, as always, it's recommended to get tested a few days after travel or participating in high-risk activities. Even if other areas have eased restrictions that you've been visiting, please remember to continue to be vigilant about protecting your own health and the health of others. So even if you test negative, consider quarantining for 5 to 7 days after you've participated in higher risk activities such as travel outside of the country or to states with higher transmission rates than we have in our area currently. And then finally, I just want to remind people as we're going into the final few weeks of the semester that our policies and expectations in connection to the Flyers Promise are still in place. Submit mandatory COVID-19 symptom screening before arriving on campus each day. All residential students are required to submit that screening each day. Remember to scan your QR codes to check in for face-to-face classes or other indoor spaces on campus. And remember that the COVID-19 hotline team is a resource for a range of different things, including reporting a test result through the app, or finding nearby testing sites or vaccination locations, and accessing other health information in connection to COVID-19. So again, we're really happy about the vaccines. We are also aware that the the case counts and the positivity ratio in our county has been increasing over the last couple of weeks, and so we really need to stay vigilant while and we encourage getting vaccines to our community members. Shifting gears now, unless you have questions, to
Nope.
athletics. A couple of athletic announcements. Congrats to the women's lacrosse team at a nice 18-4 victory at Ursuline on Wednesday morning, and congratulations to the softball team who used a pair of seventh inning rallies to sweep Parkside in a doubleheader on Tuesday afternoon this week. There's so many competitions going on as usual this spring, all through the weekend, and I'll just draw a special attention to our number 4 ranked men's volleyball team, who begins play this weekend in the first round of the MIVA playoffs against Quincy on Saturday. Our number 1 ranked women's volleyball team concludes the regular season this weekend against Indianapolis and Southern Indiana. Is it bad luck to say that they're undefeated?
It's probably bad luck. We'll get yelled at, but it's really exciting to
undefeated
note,
going into the
amazing.
final weekend of the regular season. So.
I've said this to you off camera, but just on that note, it's just a shame that because women's volleyball, because some people might wonder about this, women's volleyball was a fall sport. Mm-hmm. And most of the fall sports, the NCAA is not going to host championships on the national level. So our women could end up having a completely undefeated season.
Now you're really...
I know, I'm really jinxing it. But it's just it's an amazing accomplishment, and they're not going to be able to go for a national championship in a season where it's possible that they could win out this weekend. And then the tournament is... and I do want to just say this quickly, the tournament for women's volleyball for the GLVC is in 2 weekends. It's down in Peoria. It's on a neutral site. And there will be a limited number of people allowed to attend. So parents, other people connected, certainly each athlete will get some tickets, but there's going to be some additional tickets available because it's being run as a neutral site event. Okay, so back to my role here. So I'm going to quickly run through a few events that are going on, have been going on campus. I wanted to thank Dr. Jerry Kavoris, who participated last night in an international event sponsored by the North American Network of LaSallian Institutions. It was a panel discussion entitled Justice in the World and the LaSallian Mission Today. As I mentioned at the beginning, it was Feast Day of John Baptist de La Salle yesterday. So they did this international event on issues of justice around the LaSallian tradition. And I just wanted to thank Dr. Kavoris. It was a great event. I haven't seen the numbers yet, but I know the last one that we did, Dr. Christy Kelly was on that. And I know there were about 1,000 people who attended that event. So thank you to Dr. Kavoris for that. Also wanted to note that Lewis University's literary journal, the Jet Fuel Review, received the designation of Excellent from the National Council of Teachers of English for the spring 2020 issue. That is issue number 19. It's for all of you that aren't on campus, normally that Jet Fuel Review, there'll be hard copies that you can kind of find throughout campus. For people that aren't coming to campus as often, there is an online version of Jet Fuel Review. It's really a beautiful issue. So if you haven't seen it yet, I would highly recommend taking a look at that. Also, congratulations to the editors that worked on that issue to make Jet Fuel Review possible. These are many of our best and brightest students in the field of English and across campus who work on editing that along with some of our faculty. So it's really a great accomplishment. So thank you for all the work on that. The other thing that I want to just note is that Philip Lynch Theater is going to have another online production. The new production coming out that starts in next weekend is called The Romancers. It's by a French dramatist, the poet Edmond Rostand. April 16th, it'll run for 2 weekends, ending on April 25th. So get your tickets And really, these theater productions have been really great, and it's a great way for our students to continue to engage in something they love, but in this virtual space. Lewis University and the Innovation Hub at Lewis, we've gotten a license, and we're excited about presenting TEDx at the university the morning of April 16th. It's featuring 5 of our professors, Dr. Sheila Boyson, Camille Bird, O'Quinn, Claire Rothschild, Gina Martinez, and Vesna Markovich. Some of you who watch our show every week, you would have seen Dr. Markovich on our show 2 weeks ago when we discussed her research. But the work that's being done, has been done for this TEDx show is great. Finally, I just want to mention, and we'll probably mention it as we close, that we'll be off next week. We're really excited that next week on Thursday we have our 9th annual celebration of scholarship. This is a time for us to look at all the amazing work that our students do in the areas of research and scholarship. The title of this year's celebration of scholarship, or the theme that it's on, is Confronting Challenges Through Scholarship, Faith and Love. Will be held in a completely virtual format. So that event you can see from anywhere. If you're an alum, if you're a parent and you want to see your student presenting, or if you're a student and your friend is presenting, make sure it'll take place on April 15th. So they'll be held online. Presentation formats will be the same as previous years. There's poster sessions, concurrent sessions, creative works, and the Brother Joel Damien business plan and business pitch competition will also take place. In 2 weeks from now, because we'll be off next week, we will feature the 2 faculty co-directors, Mary Beth Desmond and Matt Domenico, who will also, be, because the winners aren't announced yet, because the event hasn't happened, but they will be bringing a couple students to join us in 2 weeks' time to talk about the celebration of scholarship. So I want to turn it back to you, Chris, because we have another kind of celebration of a different kind of scholarship that we're going to be talking about today. So I'll leave it to you to introduce our guests.
Yes, I'm really excited to introduce our guests, and I want to say one thing first, which is that we did get a couple of questions maybe that we could answer before turning to the gallery and our artists that are featured today. So one is related to vaccines. The question was whether we have any, whether they will be available in the future after tomorrow, and the answer to that is yes. But we're working with the county around specific dates, and we don't have any concrete dates to share yet. But I'm very confident that it will become a somewhat regular occurrence on campus between now and the end of the semester. And then there was a question about theater productions being open to the public, and I'm guessing the production schedule will be off after the end of the semester. There is, I guess the next unanswered question is about the typical summer production, which we have not decided about yet. And I think we're pretty confident for the regular fall production schedule that there'd be some degree of live audience members, whether that's socially distanced and with face coverings or not. That remains to be seen for the regulations in the state leading into that. Do you want to add anything to that?
No, I guess the only thing that I would add, Chris, and Chris and I spend a lot of time, and we're really joined in this effort by so many people on the faculty and staff that are working on this, but just about that theater, we really are working to try to bring back as much of the kind of sense of community and association on campus next fall as possible. That's everything from the classroom to the theater to the athletic contest. There are still variables that we're not in control of, so everybody I think knows that, but grateful to Chris for his leadership and everybody else that's working on it, and to the questioner around the theater. We fully expect that we will have, there'll probably be a limited number of tickets compared to normal, but the ability for you to come to a show next fall and be there live.
Great. So now we're really happy to focus today on the President's Art Show and on the Brent and Jean Wadsworth Family Gallery. Our first guests are Natalie Swain, Art Gallery Coordinator at the Wadsworth, and Mark Swain, Professor of Art and Chair of the Department of Art and Design. So welcome, Natalie, and welcome, Mark. Great to see you.
Thanks.
Thank you so much
both for having us.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us, both of you.
So I guess the first couple of things we wanted to ask about is really about for people who are not on campus all the time and don't have a lot of experience on campus around the gallery. Natalie, could you just tell us about the gallery? How was it started or founded, and what a typical year looks like in terms of how the shows move through the year?
Sure. Thank you so much for inviting us. So the Wadsworth Family Gallery was founded in 2013. Prior to that, we did have a hallway gallery that was called the Caterpillar Gallery, and that was predominantly for student work. So once the Wadsworth Family Gallery came to be, it was really nice because we could now offer professional artists a place to house their work where it could be kept safe and locked up at night. So we started inviting artists, and through word of mouth, we kind of gained momentum. And every month we have a new artist that we feature. So it's a very fast-paced turnaround for us, patching and painting walls in between. But I really like that because it allows us a chance to have many, many different artists featured throughout the year. And we are just, I just want to give this little plug that we are celebrating our 75th show in the gallery since 2013. And unfortunately, we can't do a big party yet, but we're hoping to plan one for the fall.
That's wonderful.
That's great.
Congratulations about that. Well, I'm really curious about something you just mentioned, Natalie, which is we use the gallery a lot to do other things. Like we have events, we have parties in there, and during regular times. And so it's always impressive to me, knowing a little bit about how these things work, that there's art on the walls all the time. And you just mentioned that there's very little turnaround time. Could you just talk a little bit more about how much work goes into taking down a show and putting up a show? And I know and what the variability is from show to show.
Yeah, we try to factor in a few days at the beginning and the end of each show. And during that time, that's the part I really enjoy, where I get to lay out the artwork and I feel like I'm kind of decorating a room in that way. So Mark and I together lay out the artwork, and prior to that, we have patched and painted the walls for the holes that were from the previous show. So that gives us a few days time in between. And, like I said, it's fast paced, but it is really nice for people to have a different show every time they come to, they enter campus. It used to be we would coordinate with theater. So every time there was a theater production, a lot of those patrons would get to see different artwork when they would come to the different shows.
So, Natalie, can you just talk a little bit about, the kind of, and I know this is unusual this year, but who comes to the art gallery? So do, students, faculty, I don't know, people from the community, the ways in which it plays a role, I guess, as a part of Will County, because I know you bring in artists, and then because of those artists who could come from all over the region, other people come in. So how does it become a kind of cultural center as you see it? And do you, how do you view that?
I do see it as a cultural center. And aside from the theater patrons that visit, we do have a lot of the outside community. The artists bring with them their family and friends and colleagues. And we have had receptions with artists that could have as many as 100 people attending. We've had some smaller events too. So the word of mouth for Lewis has gotten out there, and a lot of people have contacted me wanting to show their work in the gallery. So we have these connections. We have a great connection with the Bridgeport Art Center. A lot of our artists have studios there. We've even taken students to visit studio spaces of artists that have come to the gallery. So I think you mentioned, pretty much everyone, but it's mostly the Lewis community and community of artists and people in the region. And even if we do have an artist that comes from a little bit farther away, they will sometimes also have, their family and friends attend.
Thanks.
So maybe this might be a good time to ask, so when we do have artists on campus, they often are providing lectures about their process, about their approach, and maybe this is a question for you, Mark, but how do we connect what's going on in the gallery and the artists being present with the classes or educational opportunities for our students?
Yeah, part of the art gallery's mission is that it is a learning space, a teaching space. And so we use our gallery talks for that purpose, and sometimes we incorporate them into a curriculum, and there's thematic shows that might be of interest to a department or to a discipline. And we've done that several times before. It's also an important part of our Arts and Ideas series, our gallery talks. So having the artists show up and discuss and talk about their work and then interact with the students is a really important part of the gallery's existence. And that's one of the reasons why we try to bring fresh art in several times throughout each semester, so that as people are coming and going, or maybe going to multiple events over a semester, they're seeing new work. And it's just a web of really great intellectual content that our students have the luxury of seeing, and it's been great for that very purpose.
Thank you. I love going to those events. I always get really inspired listening to how diverse the perspectives are that different artists bring to their work, and I love hearing about their practice. So now, tell us a little bit about the President's Art Show. How does it work?
So this is one of my favorite events that we have. I think one of the most interesting things about it is that you don't have to be an art major to submit your work. So this year we have about, I would say, half art majors and half just, we have biology majors, aviation majors that may have an interest in art. So we kind of bring everybody together. This is our 13th annual President's Art Show, and it's open to any student, like I said, regardless of your major, and also alumni. In the previous years, when it's a non-COVID year, we can have up to 150 submissions of work. And then Mark will have the daunting practice of narrowing that down to around 100 pieces. This year we had a few less submissions. We had 44 submissions, and of that we narrowed down to 37. And we do have winners that Dr. Livingston has gone along with the process of donating the $1,000, which we then break down into various prize categories, first, second, third, and then a bunch of honorable mentions. But the President's Art Show was actually started with Brother James, and I'm so happy that he approached Mark and wanted to offer this type of show to the students. And then it was wonderful that Dr. Livingston wanted to continue that tradition and keep up with the donation of the money, and then also sponsoring the show. So that's why it's called the President's Art Show. And I think I said about how many submissions we got. Yes, we got 44, and we have 37 that are hanging in the gallery. So it is open in person if anybody would like to visit. And then we will also have a virtual gallery talk with the winners during Celebration of Scholarship, because the winners then are automatically a part of Celebration of Scholarship, and which is taking place, as you said, on April 15th. So there will be a Zoom link that will be in the Celebration of Scholarship pamphlet, just kind of telling anybody that would want to visit and watch the talk. And it's going to be a panel discussion with a question and answer period for the artists.
So could I ask, and either one of you can comment on this, but you know that this has been a part of my, so I love this show. Obviously it's the President's Art Show, and but I also want people to be aware, that is the people watching this, people in our community, that not all of it, but much of this art is also for sale. And so people can go over to the art gallery, and Joan and I have added to our art collection through the President's Art Show over the years. We've also purchased pieces from the other professional artists that come in at other shows. But could you, maybe Mark, you could talk about this more. Like, tell me, and then we can, some of the students after you introduce them might want to comment on this too, but sometimes this show might be the first time that an artist sells one of their pieces, right? And what does that mean to an artist to move from being a high school or a college art student to being a person who's an artist who somebody says, I want to hang that in my living room?
Yeah, that's a great question, and it's very true that over my 22 years here, that's happened so many times where somebody comes by and wants to be connected with the student and inquire about sales. We do have the students indicate a sales price. They could also indicate not for sale if it's a personal piece they want to keep, but they are always for sale usually. As a matter of fact, one of the students that we'll bring on later, I think this is the second time we've done this, but sort of brokering a sale of a piece. And I know just from my memory of being an art student in undergrad, that first person, you're right, Dr. Livingston, it's really flattering, and it's sort of intimidating that someone wants to buy a piece, and you don't know what to do, you don't know how much to the price to put on it. So it's usually a good feeling for students to feel appreciated that way.
That's wonderful. And a reminder that a Lewis education involves both a theoretical and a professional dimension.
Exactly.
And Mark is helping with both of those. So Mark, could you, I don't think we decided who's going to go first, but I think our plan now is for you to tell us a little bit about why you chose the winners, and we can look at the art a little bit, and then we'll bring on each of the winners who are here today to talk with us a little bit. So we'll let you lead the way.
I've been a juror in professional shows before, and several student shows here at Lewis and other colleges and universities. And there is a preference and maybe some personal taste involved, but really I think the juror is walking around with a rubric in her head or in his head, and it has to do with sort of trying to recognize the creativity and the innovation in the work, of course the quality and the craft that goes into the work, attention to detail. Not necessarily that it has to be a detailed piece, but there's an attention to detail that goes into it, including its presentation, how it's been presented. Sometimes a poor presentation can hurt a piece, or a good presentation can help a piece. So you're going through, and although it seems very subjective and eclectic and random, it's actually not. It has so much to do with just the quality and trying to sort of connect with the process that the artist went through to make the piece. And then just lastly, I would say, Dr. Sint, that you are, as the juror, you're also trying to put together a show, a cohesive show, so that when it's all hung and finished, that it presents as a unified body of work. And that's, I think, a goal that a juror grapples with too.
Mm. Great. So who would you like to talk about first?
Well, our first student guest, and thank you very much, students, for coming on the show, is a graduating senior graphic design major, Samantha Salvaboro, who won third place, $100 prize for her digital painting called Flow. So congratulations, Samantha, and welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me.
So
Hi,
Samantha, can
Samantha.
you tell me what that means? Digital. I mean, it's not digital photography. This is digital painting, right? So tell me what that means. Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you. Yeah, so this was for an advanced painting class, and I started off in the semester using traditional mediums, so like gouache watercolors, and I was really struggling with it, and so my instructor Leslie kind of encouraged me to just kind of explore other types of mediums, and so like I found Procreate and saw that they had like a lot of different types of brushes that had, different effects. And so it was created like on a digital iPad type of program, but like I tried to mimic something close to like traditional medium. So try to get like the same types of textures and everything.
That's great.
And then what's in the show is a printout, it looks like. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, cool. And did you pick the paper it's on or anything like that in terms of what Mark was saying about presentation?
No, this is
there-
actually the first time that I was submitting anything to like a gallery, so I wasn't really sure how to do it, and so I just kind of went with like a foam board because it was kind of like a impulse move, like last minute thing. So it was something that I can kind of get fairly quickly and just kind of get it turned in, just to say that like, I was able to participate, just have like the guts to actually submit a piece to be seen.
I love that, the guts, and thank you for taking that step, because you then make our lives richer by sharing your art. So let me ask you this. So when, Samantha, when you came to Lewis, did you know you wanted to be a graphic design major? And if not, what led you to it? And if so, when did you know that? Did you know it, really early on? And how was that journey? I guess I'm just interested in your artistic journey.
My journey is actually it's a very long journey actually. So I'm a non-traditional student and I'm coming back to school after serving in the military and pursuing other degrees. And I've kind of always danced around creative work. So like graphic design was something that I looked at in high school, and I've tried getting like a specific occupation in the military that just had limited seats. And I've kind of found myself on like paint crews where I was designing sides of the jets and stuff and laying that out. But I never really saw it as a career option until recently. And I actually started off at Lewis in the communications department. And it wasn't exactly what I was looking for. And then I came into the senior art exhibit at the gallery, and it's like, oh, this is it. And so that's kind of like where I shifted.
Wow. And so when was that? Was that a year ago, 2 years ago, when you walked into the gallery and you're like, I know I'm doing communications, but this is it? When did that happen?
I think that was maybe spring of 2019.
Okay.
Or fall 2019.
Okay, a couple years ago. I want to, Mark, could you maybe just tell us a little bit about what you liked about it? Like what a particular about this piece struck you, and the criteria that you mentioned.
Yeah, and Samantha mentioned switching medium, and I think that the artists are, especially our graphic designers, but they see the advantage of building their skill sets with different mediums, and that it's a transferable skill. So, for example, if you're comfortable with gouache, which is like an opaque watercolor, or watercolor, it's easy for Samantha to then learn that paint program on her iPad and to sort of mimic, as she said, some of the process that goes into a watercolor painting. So as a juror, when you see that, and you see that piece there, and you see her ability to kind of mimic watercolor and to explore and kind of get to the bounds of that program and what it's capable of, you see her skill in hand painting being transferred into that digital print there. And so I think that I had an appreciation for that. Some of her decisions with the foreground and the background in particular is very striking, and really strong composition. Not to get too art nerdy here, but really nice, strong composition, and also sort of whimsical and playful. And so there's just a lot of characteristics I really liked about it that I kept coming back to. And incidentally, just to quickly, I create a list of the front runners, and then I start to jostle that around throughout that period of judging, and Samantha's kept coming to the top. So
Wonderful. So maybe now, Samantha, stick around, please, and then. But Mark, if you could maybe talk about Rachel's work, or we can bring Rachel on.
yeah, so Rachel Fossler is an illustration major, also an accomplished sculptor, and an incredibly creative person. And by the way, both of our students, welcome Rachel, by the way, but both of our students are very prolific, very hardworking, very dedicated to the things that they do. And again, that comes through in their work in the show. But Rachel's piece, which happened to win first place, is you can't miss it when you walk in the gallery. It's right in the center of the room. But it's a large sculpture, figurative sculpture called Peas and Carrots, but without the carrots. There it is right there. And it just screams Rachel. She has a way of transferring in and out of drawing and sculpture. She takes a very, very unconventional approach to a lot of her work, experimenting with found objects, mixed media, all kinds of materials, juxtaposing figurines and repurposing them, adding whimsical faces and hands. Just really, honestly, I would say Rachel creates at a graduate level as an undergraduate. Nudge, nudge, Rachel. Hopefully Rachel continues this into graduate school. So welcome, Rachel.
Thanks for having me. It's good to be here.
Well, thank you for joining us, Rachel. So can you tell me a little bit about, one, congratulations. So that's really awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you for submitting. As I said to Samantha, I really appreciate your submissions, because obviously those of us that aren't artists, and I am not an artist, our lives are enriched by artists being willing to put their stuff out there. So, Mark talked a little bit about what he sees in your art, but I'm really interested in the title of this piece. So if you could help me, like, when does the title come to you? And, does it foreground the piece? Does it come in the middle? Did you change it 4 or 5 times? And what does it mean?
Yeah, so most of the times I don't really think of a title for a piece that I do until like way after I've made it. People will be like, oh, what's it called? Or like, does it have a name? And I don't know. It's just a thing that I did. Like, I don't have a name for it. But this one was a little bit different because I made the body and like the ottoman and everything like that all in like 3 or 4 days, like the weekend before the show. But the head I'd made the previous summer because my dad like brought home a head from a joke shop that went out of business, and he's like, "This is for you." I'm like, "Thank you, Dad. I'll use it." And then I did the painting and added the googly eyes, and I had this star hole puncher, and I just like put all the little stars on his head out of orange and yellow construction paper, and so I had those 2 colors. I had green and orange, and I like always kind of thought of it as like the peas and carrots head. And so that's kind of where the title came from. But then also in the bowl that you can see on his lap, if you look in it, it's full of peas that I made out of clay. And I was turning it in, and I didn't even realize like, oh yeah, I've got to think of a title, and I hadn't done that yet. And I was just standing there for a while, like trying to figure it out. And I was like, I guess like I want it to be called peas and carrots, but like there's no carrots, and I'm not gonna like go back and make carrots before I turn it in. So I just put in parentheses, but without the carrots, and I thought that could be funny.
It is funny.
It's very funny. So again, and thank you for sharing that process. This is what I love about there's nothing better than having a long meal with an artist. And my brother's an artist, but I just love because you can take up 3 or 4 hours just talking, and I just appreciate you sharing that, because it's the best of art is the creativity. What we invite people to be creative when they come to a university, and certainly you've done that. Chris, I don't want to take up the floor here. Questions you might have for?
Yeah, sure. I have questions. Rachel, so it's great to see this really incredible piece. So congratulations again. I know it's a little, I imagine it's a little not ideal to have a whole bunch of people see one of your pieces and not know more about you. So what would it be, and Mark mentioned you're very prolific and you try a lot of different experiments, which is great. What would 4 other of your pieces look like if you did a show with 5 pieces in them?
Yeah, so actually I do have another piece in this show.
Cool.
It's the jackalope guy, like the furry jackalope with the tutu and the old man face. That's one of mine. And I've actually also got some things in the hallway right now, but other things I like to do watercolor. I mix watercolor and acrylic a lot, like together. I mean, not like, in the same like paste, but like I'll have like a painting that's got like watercolor elements as well as acrylic, and I like to cut things out with X-Acto knives and like layered characters and backgrounds together. So I've got some of that. Like that's something that I really like to do. And then I'm also really into like the egg shape for some reason. So like I do a lot of things that are egg related. So I've like my mom, like when she makes eggs, sometimes like there'll be like a little hole instead of like it cracking in half. It'll be mostly a whole egg, and then I'll take that and then I'll just give it feet and I'll paint it. I'll give it like some eyes and a nose. So that's something I like to do. Also, I've been experimenting with plaster recently. So I've got a sculpture right now, and it's like this giant bubblegum man, and I dipped cheesecloth into plaster, and then I like bunched it up and put it on like kind of a skeleton of sticks and newspaper that I had made, and then I painted it pink and sprayed it with a gloss coat, so he looks like he's chewed bubblegum, and he's just like this big kind of imposing guy with like these little googly eyes, and he's just sticking bubblegum on. And yeah, I don't know.
That's great.
It's really great. It's and I think Mark used this earlier about maybe, I don't know if, but whimsical. Like it sounds, there's a whimsy to your, and even your, I wish we were in person, but the way you present yourself, there's a kind of like, you love your art, you can tell. And there's this whimsical nature to the way you approach creating things for people. And my sense is that you kind of want people to walk up and have that little smile on their face. There's this sense of being an artist who wants to draw out smiles or fun or whimsy. Yeah. As opposed to some artists are wanting constantly to bring out people's sense of seriousness and death and, despair. And I don't get that from you. So, go ahead. Go ahead, Chris.
Okay, so I think Mark said you're an illustration major. Could you talk about what that means in terms of what classes you have to take and what you spend your time doing in order to be an illustration major?
Mm-hmm. So that's like the intro classes would be like intro to painting, and then advanced painting, and then drawing and things like that. So and then you have to take at least an intro to graphic design class, but it's more focused on traditional methods. So like pens and pencils and paper and stuff instead of like, it's less focused on graphic design, but again, that kind of depends on the student and what their interests are. Like a lot of students who are illustration majors also like to double that up with graphic design, but I don't know, graphic design's not really like my thing. Like I like to be able to touch it and like physically manipulate it, and like computers kind of frustrate me in general. So I'm not really interested in that as much at the moment. I mean, it's possible that that could change in the future and I might pick something up and like maybe teach myself some things, but at the moment, I'm pretty happy with just like more traditional methods of art. And I know it's kind of funny that I'm an illustration major, but then like I'm also doing all of these like mostly sculptures recently, but I kind of go through like phases like, oh, I'm just gonna like do watercolor for like a year, and then I'm like, changed my mind. I'm gonna sculpt for like 5 months and like not draw ever. Like, but
So Rachel, can I ask you the same question I asked Samantha, which was, did you know that you wanted to be an art major when you came to Lewis? Did you find it out, after a year being here? And did you know it maybe as a sophomore in high school? I don't know. So just tell me a little bit about your journey of how you got from whenever you want to start to where you are now as an artist.
sure. So it's kind of interesting because I feel like when people see some of the things that I make, they're like, oh, like where'd you get like your talent from? Like, was your mom like a good artist, or like was your dad creative, or like did you take a lot of art classes in high school? And I'm just kind of like, no, I didn't. Like, I kind of had to work for it because like I did not ever take art classes. Like I wasn't super interested in art like growing up, and in high school I only took an intro to art class my senior year, and then maybe a photography class, but that was it. Like I never took ceramics or like any sort of like extracurriculars or anything like that. It was just like art was something that I liked, but I didn't really see it as like something that I could make a career of potentially, or like have a high interest in. It was just kind of something that was there. And then I was kind of thinking like, oh, maybe I want to do aviation. I don't know. Like flying planes could be neat. And so somebody suggested Lewis, so we went on a visit. And at this point, I was kind of like not sure about aviation anymore because I'd done a flight with a professor at another college, and I'd realized, oh, I have motion sickness really bad, and I don't know, like, I don't really know if I want to like spend the extra money and like put everything into aviation if it's like not even gonna work out. And so I was kind of like already not really thinking that that was going to be a good fit for me anymore. And then me and my family on a visit day, we visited the art department, and Mark happened to be there. And he was talking to me, and I happened to have like some pieces with me, and we were kind of looking at my work together, and he sent me home with like some illustration board to play with. And he was like, I think he was supposed to be at a meeting at the time, but he was like, oh, let me tell you about the Lewis Art Department. And so that was just kind of encouraging to me. And then I kind of was like, okay, well, maybe I'll try this and I'll see what happens. So that's where I'm at.
Wonderful.
Great story.
This might be a good time to bring everyone back together. And Mark, I wanted to ask you just to follow up with what Rachel was just talking about. Could you just tell us in a really quick nutshell, what, if people are watching, current students who are thinking about doing art or prospective students, and how does it function how do art classes function in the general education, for example, and then what Rachel and Samantha both talked about particular tracks in the major. So just a quick description of some of the choices in the major as well.
Yes, thank you. The general education offerings are art appreciation, art history, drawing, 2D design, and painting. So the general student population can take those for their fine art credit. As far as our majors that we offer, we are unveiling a new major in this coming fall, which is a BA in design with concentrations in graphic design, motion graphics, or interaction design. We also have our fine art majors like drawing, painting, general art, and actually Rachel's major, illustrationist, sort of floats in between commercial and fine art. So she's a fine artist, and can sort of use that talent for commercial purposes, for working for companies and advertising and that kind of thing. So, we have I think a very strong graphic design program that we're building on, and we have a very strong fine art program. And by the way, all of those majors come out of a fine art core, which is unusual. But all of our students get some exposure to painting and drawing and some of the foundational fine arts that they can build upon with. So, yes, thank you.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. Both Rachel and Samantha mentioned how, taking those like core traditional skills courses, and then building on them. And as an old-fashioned person myself, I really appreciate that is happening. And I really see the value in that. So Mark, could we ask you a little bit about your own work? And I think there may be an easy example of it right behind you, but could you maybe just talk a little bit about where your work comes from and how it evolves and whatever you want to say.
Yeah, thank you. Well, first of all, this is just really inexpensive artwork that we have in our house here.
Yeah.
This is my most recent series, and I'm getting ready to have a show in November. So I kind of related to what Samantha and Rachel are talking about. The paintings that I'm going to be making in November don't exist. I have to make all of them from nothing. So my career sort of started a representational kind of Edward Hopper-esque, and it arrived into a slight journey into abstraction, even though it's still representational. And these more kind of stark landscapes that are oil painted on concrete, which kind of related to, again, what Rachel and Samantha talked about with materials, and just stumbling onto the idea of painting oil directly onto concrete, which I just really love. In the last 2 decades, I'm more energized about painting than ever before, really because of this process. So I'm excited to paint my new show in November, and I'll be plugging that when the time comes. So thanks,
can I just
Dr.
ask
Swain.
a quick follow-up? And we are running out of time. So, but Mark, tell me, I guess I just want to understand what excites you, or what is so different that makes it exciting between painting oil on canvas, kind of the traditional mode, and oil on concrete. I mean, why are those two mediums so different in terms of how they absorb the oil or bring I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's the ones that I'm doing on concrete are more malleable to me. I can kind of and they change. They go from like a slippery oil painting over a period of about 8 hours to they become almost waxy, almost like an oil pastel. I can actually use my hands to manipulate the paint. They're time sensitive, so you have to paint them actually pretty quickly. So there's this kind of pressure to squeeze as much information out of it as you can before it dries, because once it dries, I usually don't go back into them. So I think there's and again, Rachel probably touched on it. There's a connection between an artist and materials, and artists typically, maybe like a chef and food material, or a musician and a soundboard or something. It's just that kind of synergy between the materials that you're using and the creative process and the artists themselves. So it's a great question.
All right, thank you. So I want to say thank you to all 4 of you for joining us on the show today. Congratulations especially to Rachel and Samantha for the great work you produced, for being chosen as winners of this year's President's Art Show. And I want to invite everybody to come and see the show. So thank you very much. And then I think I can just wrap it up. Chris doesn't need to say anything. He just motioned to me. So just again, a couple quick reminders. We won't be on next week. We're taking the week off to celebrate the scholarship of our students in all its various forms, from art to business contests to chemistry and physics and literature and a whole host of other things. So we're looking forward to that. We hope you'll join us online next week for Celebration of Scholarship. Reminder that the TEDx event is also involved in that. For our employees, next Tuesday is our event regarding strategic planning for the university and thinking about our future. So again, I want to wish you all a wonderful Easter week. Congratulations to the brothers for their day celebrating St. John Baptist de La Salle, and many blessings to all of you and your family in the coming week.